Hello, students. I welcome you to this lesson on diseases of poultry and preventive health care. It is a topic from the course VHM 203, Poultry and Fish Production and Management of the CCMAS, that is the core curriculum minimum and academic standards of the Nigerian university system. Now, you can see the cover page for the curriculum is to your left, while we have to the right a resource material produced, the fundamentals of veterinary medicine, to help in the effective delivery and learning of this course. Now, on your screen now, you have the CC Master section of VHM 203, Poultry and Fish Production and Management. You will see the learning outcomes. Under learning outcome 2, you're going to be looking at health management practices necessary for poultry production. And under the content, course content, you can see the issue of biosecurity measures on farms being included. And that is what this lesson is all about. In the Fundamentals of Veterinary Medicine, Book 1, in Chapter 12, it's about poultry and fish production and management. But the Chapter 12A is specifically for poultry. So that's where you find, that's where you have the content for this course. Now, going to this lesson, what are the objectives of this very lesson? The first one is to introduce to you diseases of poultry species. It's an introductory course. You will be dealing with the details of these diseases at the 500 level. The second objective is to relate diseases of poultry species to productivity. The farmer is in business to make profit from meat production and egg production. So anything that will affect the health of the birds will affect productivity, because there's a certain age the birds must reach market weight. There's a certain age they have to start producing. If there's any disease that comes in between, it will affect productivity. Now, the next objective is to describe the portals of entry of diseases into the poultry farm. How do these disease agents come in? And then the fourth objective is to explain the 3 preventive healthcare measures that are necessary for poultry production. So we start with diseases of poultry. Now, what we classify them by the causative agent, that's the pathogens. We have viral diseases caused by virus, and there's a lot of them for the poultry species: Newcastle disease, avian influenza, infectious bursal disease, avian encephalomyelitis, also known as epidemic tremor, infectious bronchitis, avian pneumovirus, so many of them. And then we have bacterial diseases like the salmonellosis. I want you to mind the spelling SES. It shows it's plural. It shows it's a group of diseases. And under that, you have like the fowl typhoid, you have the pleurum disease, aeruginosis, paratyphoid infection, and then you have fowl cholera caused by Pastorella multicida. Then the chronic respiratory disease is a mycoplasmal infection. You have infectious coryza. It's also caused by Haemophilus paragallinarum and many other E. coli, infection, and so on. You also have parasitic diseases affecting poultry. They could be protozoan diseases like coccidiosis, stomoniasis. They could be due to helminths, those are worms, roundworms are nematodes, flatworms are cestodes, trematodes are flukes. And it could be due to ectoparasite, ticks, mites, fleas. All of these will affect the health of the birds and therefore affecting productivity. Now, let's look at that more in details with regards to productivity. Disease is a major cause of reduced productivity, as I explained. The birds will not be able to gain weight as they should. They will not produce eggs as they should. They may be delayed in doing all of this activity. The farmer is not able to make enough profit as targeted, and this is not very good. And then this is brought about by, that's disease in poultry, largely brought about by intensification and industrialization of production. You see, prior to modern poultry production, the disease outbreaks were not so many because the birds were reared extensively. They were just in the courtyard. Contact between birds was limited, and the space whereby they were being reared was large. So, but for modern poultry production, a good number of birds, large number, they are brought together in a small space. So contact is closer. They contact themselves. The environmental condition is very suitable for bacterial and viral growth, and thus we have diseases. And as I said, this will definitely affect productivity. Now, let's look at the portals of entry of these diseases. Please note that every item we use in the poultry farm will bring in diseases, could bring in diseases if we allow it, if we are not careful enough. Look at the litter material. You bring that in, usually the wood shavings from the sawmill. You have free-ranging chickens moving around. They will defecate on them. They bring in diseases to your own poultry farm. And then water could be contaminated. You use the water from the river, water from sources that are not so clean, that are not sanitized, or even the feed. The feed could become contaminated. Day-old chicks, you must get day-old chicks from reputable hatcheries. If the source of the bird is bad, even the parents, there are some diseases that are vertically transmitted. If these chicks are already carrying some of these pathogens, or they get them even from the hatcheries, they will bring that to the farm. Also, we have point of labor. Some farmers do not want to go through the stress of rearing pullets that will become layers. So they will rather have that contracted out. Somebody specializes in that, and they now bring those already grown birds to their farm. If the source is not clean, then they will bring in pathogens onto the farm. Also, dead birds. Occasionally, there are dead birds. If they are not well disposed on time, it could be a source of entry. Or even if the birds died due to a disease, if it's not taken care of quickly, it will spread, and then you have disease outbreak on the farm. Also, wild birds. You have a lot of free-flying birds, especially around poultry houses, because they know feed will be there for them. So sometimes if the netting around the poultry house is broken, the wild birds can come in and just dive into the poultry feed, take some of it, in the process defecate. These wild birds carry a lot of pathogen. They will not show any sign of sickness because, like I said, they are free. They are free. They are kind of, to some extent, naturally immune to a lot of these pathogens, which the commercially reared chickens are not. So we bring in disease. They could serve as portal of entry. Also, the equipment we use. So even for us veterinarians, the machines we use, the debaking machine, uh, the debaking machine and every other thing that we use on the farm, the automatic syringe and so many of those equipment, the wheelbarrows, the spades that we use could be source of entry, especially if they are being shared between farms and between pen houses. Also, the workers, where do they go before coming in? Probably they pass through another poultry farm. They could bring in diseases onto the farm. And also, even the itinerant veterinarian, many farms do not have resident veterinarian, so they share. If the vet chooses to go to 2, 3 farms in a day, it could be a portal of entry of disease to the farm. Also, rodents that we have in the farm, rats, they help in transmitting disease. They bring them in because sometimes you have the fecal droppings that have been packed in a dump somewhere. Rats will go there at night. Then they will go to the feed storage room and then they will defecate, pass on bacteria. In the morning, the worker comes and feeds the chicken, not knowing that the feed is contaminated, and then you have disease outbreak. And then the others, even pets within the farm. And these are just brought to just explain further to show you, to have a panoramic view of what I just said. And for example, even air, they could be airborne. There are some pathogens, especially respiratory diseases. Their causative agents could be airborne, so they are in the air. The visitors that come in, the workers, cats and dogs, pets around the farm, the rodents, the wild birds, insects. Sometimes insects are vectors, and if the farmhouse is not well cleaned or disposed or cleaned after the birds in them have been disposed, they could serve as resident vectors on the pen house. Then the feed itself could be contaminated, as well as water, the dead birds, the manure, and even the vehicles. Sometimes vehicles that bring in feed into the farm. Probably it's gone to another farm to drop feed. It could be a source of entry of disease into the poultry house. Now, the knowledge of the routes of disease entry in the farm is very important in the appropriate implementation of the 3 preventive healthcare measures, which we know as prophylaxis. So, these 3 preventive healthcare measures are biosecurity, vaccination, and chemoprophylaxis. So it's important, once we know the routes through which disease could come in, we are able to apply all these preventive measures. And we will start with biosecurity. What is biosecurity? Biosecurity are measures that are taken to prevent the entry of pathogenic microorganisms into a farm. And in the event of entry, measures that you take to prevent the spread of this farm. So it's another thing to prevent entry. Sometimes there's breach in biosecurity, the pathogenic organism comes in. Those measures that you take to prevent spread within the farm. And like I said, it involves all the management practices that are used to prevent disease entry into a flock and or spread between flocks in a farm to other farm. Usually these are common sense things. They are easy things to look at on the farm to institute, and we'll look at this as we go on. Now, let's first of all look at the objectives of biosecurity. What do you intend to achieve by it? Now, it has two objectives: bioexclusion and biocontainment. Bioexclusion, it's trying to keep diseases away. The farm is clean, there's no disease, but all the measures you put in place to prevent the pathogens from coming in is bioexclusion. And then for biocontainment, this is in the event disease pathogens have entered, there's an outbreak already, all the measures you take to keep diseases within the farm. You don't want it to spread outside or within the pen house. You don't want it to spread from one pen to the other. This is biocontainment. And there are three implementation parts to biocontainment. The first one being traffic control or movement control within the farm. Now that you have identified a pen house that has a disease outbreak, you have to control traffic to be sure that workers are not moving from a diseased pen to the non-diseased one, so that you want to limit the spread, or even going out from the diseased farm into other farms around. The second implementation part is isolation of birds based on the health sector. Now we need to now isolate them, either the pen house or try to call out that they're trying to remove the ones that look sick and try to keep them apart from the ones that do not look sick. That's isolation of the birds. And the third implementation part is sanitation. After those birds have been disposed, how do we clean? We must thoroughly clean and disinfect the poultry house using broad spectrum disinfectant that can take care of viruses, bacteria, and fungi. Like I mentioned, there are some biosecurity measures on the farm. They are not, you cannot exhaust them, but here are some of them. Now, the first one is cleaning and disinfection of poultry house before stocking. Before new sets of birds are brought in, even though you had cleaned the house before, when you dispose the birds that were there, it's very important that cleaning and disinfection is repeated. Then we need to purchase day-old chicks from reputable hatcheries that you know that meet standards and that's not taking fertile egg from just any source, because within the hatchery there could be spread of infection and some vertically transmitted disease. And these the day-old chicks we take to the farm when the farmer buys them and take them. We also need to ensure adequate brooding condition. Brooding is that process in which you provide a conducive atmosphere for growth for day-old chicks as they come in. We're talking of providing warmth, providing clean water, balanced feed, and feed that is also not contaminated. Now, each attendant must have a designated poultry house. You do not want an attendant to be manning 3, 4 poultry houses, because once there's an outbreak in one, he will just be moving the disease around. Now, you need to ensure supply of clean water and good quality feed, like I said earlier, that are not contaminated. Perimeter fencing is very important for every farm. You might say it's expensive, but in the long run, it's not so expensive. First of all, it keeps rodents away as much as possible. It might not be all, but it will limit the load on the farm, the load of rodents on the farm. Also, you do not have visitors just straying into the farm, strolling in anyhow. Because once you have a fence, you will have a gate through which everybody comes in. And there's designation. There's limit, there are boundaries. After which the visitor cannot go, beyond which the visitor cannot go into the rearing area. So it's good to have the perimeter fencing. And then having food dip at the entrance of every pen house. Even the worker that's working there with his boots, the food dip has disinfectant in it, disinfectant free at the entrance, where he dips his foot, dips his boots, and whoever comes in, even the vet that wants to work, will dip his foot in and out of the poultry house. There are also vehicular dips that are at the entrance of farms. It's very important, so that because you don't know where the vehicle is coming from, so the vehicle wades through that disinfectant pool. So in some farms, they even shower, they will spray the vehicles. Now, pen houses must be free of wild birds. That is making sure that the nets around the poultry house is intact, is not broken, to prevent them from coming in. There must be rodent control strategy in place, at least to reduce the load. And then visitors should not be allowed beyond the rearing area, etc., and etc. A lot of things we put in place just to prevent diseases from coming in and then from spreading when they come in. Now, the next biosecurity measure is vaccination. The next preventive measure, prophylaxis, sorry, is vaccination. What is vaccination? Vaccination is the process of introducing disease pathogen into an animal or bird to cause such a recipient, that is the bird, to produce antibodies which are readily available to prevent disease outbreak when a field infection occurs. So we talk about you deliberately introducing that disease pathogen into the birds so that they produce antibodies. And so when the field virus or a bacteria comes, the birds already have antibodies and they'll be able to fight the infection that is coming in. Now, these pathogens are actually the vaccines, as I said. They have reduced the strength, which we call attenuation. So they will not cause disease outbreak. They will not become sick. They will not become, it will not affect them, at least not to a large extent. And then we also have naturally mild strains of certain diseases. Like for Newcastle disease, you have the HNB1 strain. That one is also used to produce vaccine because it will not cause disease outbreak, such that they are incapable of causing disease outbreak. And examples of such vaccines in poultry, infectious bursal disease vaccine, Newcastle disease vaccine, bronchitis, many of them, we have the vaccines around. Also, for chemoprophylaxis, which is the third prophylactic measure, what is it? Chemoprophylaxis is the use of chemical agent to prevent infectious diseases. You use chemical agent to prevent infectious diseases. Now, these chemicals could be disinfectants or antibiotics. For cleaning and disinfection of the farm, you need, of course, disinfectants that are broad spectrum. This should be a routine practice on every farm. Once the birds are disposed, you clean and disinfect the farm. While expecting to receive a new stock, you also clean and disinfect to reduce the pathogen burden on the farm in the farm environment. Now, the use of disinfectant to prevent disease outbreak should therefore be encouraged. However, the use of antibiotics as a measure for disease prevention should be discouraged as much as possible. It is a known fact that they contribute to antimicrobial resistance that we have ravaging the world, both in humans and in animals. Many pathogens have been found now to be resistant to antibiotics, and it's because of the careless use of antibiotics in humans and in animals. So right now, the phenomenon is worldwide, is of public health importance. So the use of antibiotics for prophylaxis to prevent disease is highly discouraged right now. Now, in summary, what have you learned today? In this class, you have learned, you have disease of poultry introduced to you. We have been able to relate disease of poultry species to productivity. We have been able to identify some portal of entry of diseases onto the farm and how they're done. And we've explained 3 preventive health care measures that are necessary for poultry production, which is easy for you to go through. And then for your exercises, it would be nice if you can classify disease of poultry even without looking at your books. Classify them by pathogen, can explain the possible routes of infection, routes of disease introduction into the poultry farm, and what are the 3 preventive healthcare measures? We have gone through that. What do you understand by the term biosecurity? That should be known by all of you. And then it will be good for you to be able to list some biosecurity measures that you can recommend to farmers that should be instituted on our farms. I thank you for listening